Thank you very much. No, please. Thank you. It's one thing Warren would not want you to do, stand for me. Thank you. Thank you very much. As I sat listening to all of those who serve with Warren, present company excluded, I thought, what a common link. You're all made of the same stuff. You're all made of the same stuff. I think that's maybe why you could talk so well about Warren Rudman. And I say to the family, it's an honor to be invited here to speak today. Everybody knows about how tough Warren was, and I think he was, as John said, John McCain. He was sort of New Hampshire. He was forthright, he was frugal, and he was fair. That's sort of how I always looked at Warren Rudman. The one thing, though, that hasn't been mentioned, that maybe it's just me, but I admired most about Warren is the value that my parents valued the most. And that was, there was never a man or woman, at least when I was with him, that he ever looked at and spoke with, who he didn't treat with dignity. So many people in powerful positions begin to think that they know so much better than ordinary people. I think maybe the reason why, and I don't know this because others, I knew Warren well, but some of you know who knew him better. I think maybe the reason why Warren had such, in my view, a basic belief in the inherent good and capacity of ordinary people. It was never about pedigree. It was never about degree. He didn't look at people and yield to pedigree. He didn't yield to that person in the room who had the most advanced degree. He was as bright as anyone in the room. But the thing I admired most about him was I believed that he believed, given a half a chance, just ordinary, plain Americans. Ordinary, plain Americans knew what their own interest was. Didn't need somebody with a higher IQ. Didn't need someone with an advanced degree. Didn't need someone from a position of privilege to tell them what was in their own interest. Maybe it appealed to me the most about him because it's the thing I dislike most about people who are in high places sometimes. They somehow think that they're better. Not better, they care about those folks, but they somehow think that they're not capable of making their own judgments. If there's anyone that I knew who I believed thought the wider the franchise, the better off the nation would be, it was Warren Rudman. A lot of the people that we know in this town and other great centers of power somehow think that only the truly informed, that is, only truly educated, can somehow know what direction this country should take. I often kind of thought the reason why Warren thought that is maybe because he, in combat, like John and others, and Bob Dole I spoke to, who intended to be here today but couldn't be, and Danny Inouye, as they served next to ordinary people with 8th grade educations and high school educations, and watched them perform with such valor in combat and make profoundly important decisions that impacted upon not only their well-being, but the well-being of the people with whom they served. And so for me, all of the things that I've said about Warren, I could repeat, and it would just reemphasize what you already know about him. And as we used to say in the Senate, if you excuse the point of personal privilege, the reason I admired him so much was the reason I just stated. I had the dubious distinction of being told by the Senate historian that only 15 people in the history of the United States Senate have served as long as I have in this body. I've never met a man in all the time I've served, with the single exception of Danny Inouye, who had the kind of integrity, grit, and faith in ordinary Americans. So the quote I like best from Warren was the one where he said, "Just tell them the truth and watch them scatter." And that's what he always did. He'd troll the truth. You know, he was, as was referenced, and we all have a slightly different perspective, his honesty could be searing, absolutely searing. But his compassion was always profound. That's a hell of a rare combination for any man or woman. I think he believed, like Robert Louis Stevenson said, that the cruelest lies are often told in silence. He was always honest with you. He would come up to me and tell me when he thought I was just flat wrong. Not on issues, but the way I was comporting myself. And let me conclude by saying that one of the tests, I think the test, in all my years in the United States Senate, over 36, and only one that's served more than that is Danny Inouye. It's here today. Is that for Warren Rudman, Al said the coin of the realm is your integrity, and it is. But there's a coin that is even more rare than that. It's the man or woman you serve with that everyone knows when they speak the absolute truth with no pretense. You can take what they say to the bank, not just that they keep their word, but you can take to the bank their judgment. Their judgment. Justice Souter, you will recall better than anyone else here, George Mitchell and Danny were here, a lot of people were here at the time. When I was chairman of the Judicial Committee in this very room, we had some very, very contentious hearings. And we had just gone through a very, very unpleasant battle with Justice Bork. And I went down to meet with the president about who would come next. And your name was put forward. And everyone knew only a few things about you. You had a prodigious mind. You had an incredible, impeccable background, both academically and in terms of your character. But no one knew much else about you at all. And on my side of the aisle, there was an overwhelming reluctance to accept, and I don't mean this as a criticism, as a political statement, when at the time, Governor Sununu said, "I guarantee you," I forget the exact quote, I have it here, "I guarantee you he will be a conservative justice." And that was like putting up at the time a red flag in terms of my crowd, as old Fritz Hollings would say, crowd. And Warren Rudman came to see me. And he said, "Joe, I guarantee you, this man is not only has integrity, but he comes with no agenda. He has an open mind. He will listen. It's not merely he's a great lawyer, it's that he is a man who will in fact listen." That's why I asked you that question about being able to listen and hear the voices of the rest of the country. Warren Rudman said of you, "David Souter is a brilliant intellectual. He can't be classified as an ideologue in any way, shape, or form." None of the Democrats are left here, but if we remember, I went into our caucus and I said, "I'm supporting Justice Souter." And there was a hue and cry at the time in our caucus, Danny, if you remember. And they asked me why. And I said, because Warren Rudman said he had an open mind. It was not an ideologue. That's the reason why David Souter was one of the great Supreme Court justices. Because Warren Rudman said this man was not an ideologue. I see Justice Broderick in the audience, and two other, a former Republican governor and Justice Broderick and others came to see me as well to reinforce that point. But I can't think of all the years we've served here, Danny, many men beyond you who could stand up and say, I assure you, you don't know this man, but I assure you, he is what I say. He was an incredible guy. He was all everybody else said. But the part, I guess we all look to the parts we most admire. The thing I most admire about him is the way he treated everyone with dignity. On behalf of Jill and I say to the family, it's truly an honor. As I told the grandchildren, my dad were here, he had an expression. He'd look at you and say, kid, you got good blood. You got good blood.